This is the MGTOW Infinium here with another Infinium training session. This Infinium training session is entitled, Who Hurt You? The Feminine Sandbox. Now, my MGTOW brothers, inevitably and invariably, women in their ongoing efforts to entrap men into their Venus flytraps will employ a tactic called the feminine sandbox. To understand what the feminine sandbox is, we must delve briefly into the world of information technology. In the IT world, a sandbox basically refers to a controlled environment which is fully separate from the live environment that it exists in. So, for instance, a sandbox computer server environment can exist within a live production server environment. And although the sandbox server is configured exactly as the live production server, what happens on the sandbox server cannot affect the live server. So, for instance, if a software test results in a crash of the sandbox server, the production server will not be affected by the crash. It is important here to understand that the power and capabilities of the sandbox server are fully restricted by the sandbox in which it exists in. Additionally, anything can happen to the sandbox server, from reconfiguration to full deletion. That being said, women also use what can best described as a feminine sandbox on men. Like a computer environment, this is a controlled environment with the men in it who are hoodwinked into thinking that they are in charge of things, but in the reality of it, they are not. More importantly, when men are sandboxed with women, it is the women who are in charge of the sandbox, thus giving them the ability to do anything from reconfiguring it to deleting it altogether. A perfect example of a man being placed into a sandbox by a woman is the recent declaration by Jeannie Mao that she would be submissive to in marriage to her husband GC. This declaration by Mao caused great controversy, particularly on the TV show which she was a part of, The Real. And on the face of it, it seemed as if it was a powerful declaration which put Mao in direct conflict with the feminist plantation state which she is a part of. The sad reality of the matter that this was nothing more than a move by Mao to entrap GC into a Venus flytrap. For a good analysis of what Mao said, I will refer to and defer to Coach Greg Adams. He did an excellent commentary on what she said and what she said regarding submission in marriage. And again, I will refer to my brother in arms, Coach Greg Adams, because he has, again, done an excellent commentary on it. But going further, Ma, however, essentially said that she would submit to GC under certain conditions, like when she was at home with him. When she was outside the home, her strong side would be in control because, as Ma put it, I am a very dominant woman. So for GC, he is basically in a sandbox where Mao has set the parameters whereby she will submit to him. More importantly, where GC thinks he has control within the confines of his sandbox, it is Mao who has control over his sandbox. And just like the sandbox computer server, Mao can at any time do anything from reconfiguring it to fully deleting GC's sandbox. It is important here to note that the construct of submission in the marriage is one which is unconditional, not condition-based as Mao defines it. It is also important to understand that as time passes, Mao, like many women who get married, may change her mind about submission, thereby revoking GC's power within his sandbox, and basically he will be in trouble. As well, if GC tries to extend his power beyond the confines of his sandbox, there's a great possibility that he, along with his sandbox, will eventually be destroyed or deleted, aka divorce. It's not just in marriage that a man can experience the feminine sandbox. It can also happen in a work environment. I will give an example of what happened to me in terms of a sandbox situation. In one of my former jobs, I worked, as you may be aware of, in logistic roles as well as other roles and within the store that I worked in. And one of the roles I worked in was in the grocery area of the particular store that I worked in. And accordingly, when people found that I was very good at what I did in terms of handling produce and handling groceries, I was regularly assigned to that area as things went on a daily basis. So one day, one of the store managers pulled me into the office and wanted to get me fully into that area. And of course, I was getting given the "you must own it" speech. You must uh, take control. You must do what you need to do. That type of thing by this manager. She was a female manager, I would say. And so I did exactly that. So when I was working in that area, in the produce part of it, particularly, I found that certain things were not being done, certain things were not happening. And one of the things that was going on was they had a organic section, which there was no organic products there. So, for instance, there was a big 3-foot sign hanging over a table with one little box of organic spaghetti sitting there, and this went on for months. And this was under this manager's watch. So again, you can imagine a big table, a big 5-6 foot table with a 4-foot sign, 3 or 4 foot sign hanging over it, and one lone box of spaghetti sitting there for months. And so as I went back into the produce coolers, I saw day after day that the produce was not getting out on the floor. The organic produce in particular was not getting out on the floor. And as retail things go, if merchandise is sitting back in the back room or sitting back in the cooler, it's not going to get sold. So in my mind, it's better to put it out on the floor and let it get sold. And so one day I got it in my mind to do a big reconfiguration of the area, put all the produce on the floor, all the organic produce on the floor, plus some other items that were not selling well, put them into locations where they would be seen and sold. And so I did this thing. It took a course of maybe 2 to 3 days. And after that, within a matter of days, I found that the traffic picked up in the area, that the produce began to get sold. All these things began to happen. And so there again, there was increased flow of the produce going out the door in customers' hands because of what I did. And I noticed that there was a nearby grocery store that was nearby my store. And the officials from that store, the people from that store, would kind of come over and look at what we were doing in our store. And I really didn't think nothing of it until one day I noticed that when I went into their store, they were beginning to reconfigure things in a manner that I had done in my store. And that was the power of what I did. It basically caused another store to see what I was doing and copy what I was doing. And so within my sandbox, I was quite happy. I was seeing that things were moving along. I was seeing that it was having effect on not only the customers in my store, but it's having an effect on other people, uh, particularly the store that was next to us, that was nearby us. But where I went wrong was I exceeded the confines of my sandbox. And so one day I noticed my the store manager come by, and she had this look on her face, And she said nothing. She was just looking around the area, looking around at what I have reconfigured. And I saw the look on her face, and I read what was in her, what was on her expressions, on her face, and that was the delete key on my SandBox was about to get pressed. And accordingly, the next day, another employee was in my area, and he was taking down everything that I had did. And after that, I was placed on quote unquote what was called punishment. That was restricted hours, that was being placed in other areas which other employees did not like. All these things happened to me because my manager got jealous of what I was doing, because I had exceeded the parameters of my SandBox and made her look bad in the process. So the takeaways that must be understood here is that the feminine SandBox is designed to hoodwink a man into thinking that he has power and control, when in reality, he is in a highly restricted, confined environment. More importantly, it is the women who are in full control of the SandBox, who define the parameters of the SandBox, and who can do anything and everything to the SandBox at her whims, or at their whims. Lastly, if a man who is operating within the confines of a feminine SandBox begins to get out of hand, he will suffer the consequences. So again, in Jesus' case, it is highly likely that if he demands submission outside of the confines of his home, he's going to get in trouble with Jeannie Ma. And additionally, again, as I found out the hard way, when I got out of control of the confines of the SandBox I was in my store, I was punished. So I'm going to make top of this again. The one thing that I learned from my experiences was to not let myself be SandBoxed anymore as much as I could. And for the SandBoxes that I have been in, I extracted myself out of it. And I have made it a point where I will attempt to, and have accomplished the point of taking control of every aspect of these areas where women have tried to SandBox me, where women have tried to put me in places where I'm restricted, I have little power. I have been working on getting that resolved. So ultimately, again, being, like Coach Greg Adams says, being a free agent, having more control over my life rather than to be in a controlled, confined environment such as the SandBox. And again, you have to look at things this way, my brothers. Again, women get very jealous when you exceed them, when you make them look bad, so to speak, when you supersede them. There's no point in trying to work together, because it does not work. I have found that over and over again. And GZ will find this out. You would think, as a logical, critically thinking person, a man, that teaming together, letting a person who has strengths, who has different strengths, but teaming together, not one dominating the other, but teaming together to make things work, would be the goal of things, but it is not. So in my case, again, I thought that the more I tried to get that produce on the floor where it was sold, it would ultimately go towards sales, which would ultimately go towards our salaries, that type of thing. It would make us all look good. But in the eyes of the female manager who was over that department, I was doing wrong. It is logical. It is in my mind, stupid, but that's what happened. So again, my brothers, when women come to you with these, I will do this here and allow you to do this because I will do this here. Again, the best thing to do is to walk away. In terms of marriage and submission, submission is a 24/7 thing. It is not conditioned upon where you are here or where you are there. It is unconditional. And that should be the same with your life, my brothers. And that's what happens with the MGTOW philosophy, that it takes the conditions off of your life. It takes the restrictions off your life. It does not place you into a sandbox, which is confining, which is restricted, which can be deleted. It places you outside of that sandbox on solid ground where you can walk towards your freedom, my brothers. That's why it's important for you to understand that you must daily take your red pills. You must daily embrace and follow the MGTOW philosophy, because that is the only way for you in this day and age, my brothers. Again, these women want conditions, and in certain conditions, in certain terms, that is not acceptable anymore. Again, you must understand that there are many factors, particularly with Jeannie Ma. They know they really understand that the MGTOW philosophy, red pilling, is having an effect. They are aware of the COVID-19. They're aware of all these things. They're aware of how hard it is to find good men. Those women are aware of it. And that is why they are doing everything to lock men down, so to speak. They understand these things. And so, again, my brothers, look at what these women are saying. When a Jeannie Ma says that she will submit, she's not saying she's going to submit. She's saying something to hoodwink a man. That's what she's saying. And so that's what you, my brothers, must understand. It is important for you to, again, to look at the layers and things that are going on. Because, again, if a woman places you into a sandbox, she will eventually delete that sandbox and you will be hurt by it. So again, my MGTOW brothers, the only way for you, the most important way for you, is the road down the MGTOW path. To travel down that path and to observe and to see the things that are going on and direct yourself away from them so that you can live in peace, in fullness, and eventually joy for yourself, because you are free from the machinations, from the whims, from all the things that the feminist plantation state can do to you. That's why it is important for you, my brothers, to stay on that path and to hold the line. Your life is not a resource. You are not something that can be extracted from and that can be drugged down the aisles of a court where you can be raped or you can be used and abused. You are not somebody who can be hoodwinked, who can have the wool pull over their eyes, so to speak. You are a man. You are somebody that has critically thought and has said, I will go my own way. I will not submit to the feminist plantation state. You are a man. You are not what Jeannie Mao says that you are. You are not what these women say who you are. You are a man. And you deserve better, my brothers. You deserve better than to be placed in a sandbox of restriction which causes you ultimately harm. So again, my brothers, as I've said repeatedly, there is no benefit to you to cohabitate with or to marry women in this day and age. It is no benefit to you. It is no benefit to you to try to work with women sometimes because it does not work. I see this on a daily basis. I go through this on a daily basis on my job right now. And so that's why, again, I am working on developing resources and things, not only for myself, but to help other brothers who are going through things as I am going through things. My MGTOW brothers, again, the way forward is not working under the gate of the feminist plantation state, which says work towards freedom, when in reality it is work towards death. The way forward is down the MGTOW path towards your freedom. The MGTOW philosophy, although it is a simple philosophy, is so profound because it gives you the ability to have limitless possibilities and limitless capabilities. My MGTOW brothers, again, always remember that you are a man. And because of the MGTOW philosophy, you are first. And you do not deserve to be restricted anymore. This is the MGTOW Infinium, and this has been an Infinium training session. My MGTOW brothers, now more than ever, stay safe, stay strong, stay on the MGTOW path, and remember, MGTOW is the liberation of men's minds. MGTOW cannot and will not be stopped.